going to show you what goes into your dozen roses that you get for Valentine's Day. Now typically we start with our greens, so if you're trying to make this yourself, it takes a lot more greens than you think. This is called baker fern. It's a nice hardy green, it holds up for a long time and it fills in really nicely for us. So we'll usually use between half and a full bunch of baker fern depending on how big it is. Sometimes the leaves come a little smaller, sometimes a little bigger. And you want to go in with your baker fern at an angle. The nice thing about these types of vases is that they cinch in at the neck here, and that is going to help create that grid so that our roses stay up straight and they just don't all fall to the outside. Now you'll notice as I'm putting them in, I'm just wiping down the length of the stem first, just to get any dirt off of it, and you can rinse it under water as well. So just like that, cut it and put it in. Always try to cut your stems at an angle when you can, and then just keep layering them in until they start to be able to stand up on their own. So right now they're kind of all going around the outside. We're reinforcing this little bird's nest that's happening right here at the neck of the vase. And then at a point when there is enough crisscrossing going on, the greens will start to be able to stand up on their own. And that's when you can start adding the other stuff in. And layer, and I'm kind of just going around like hands on a clock, you know? Make sure some are going in this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, just like on spokes on a wheel. Move all the way around. Remove any damaged pieces as you're going through. All right, so this is the foundation of our arrangement. Now, from this point, we start adding our nicer greens. So the other standard green that we use is called salal, or lemon leaf. Looks like this. One out for you. Like so. And some of them come on a stem like this. You'll get several pieces, and some just come on a single. Sometimes it's very petite, sometimes it's long, so you gotta work with what you have. Usually for our rose dozens, we try to get the longer ones just so it starts filling in a little bit, because of course at Valentine's Day, everybody wants those long stem roses. So if you just stuck them in like this, you would just have kind of sticks coming out, which is not overwhelmingly pretty. So we'd like to choose some greens that give a little bit of upward fill so that it takes up some of the space in between our stems. So on the salal, I don't really want to use it as this big piece. I'm going to cut it down into separate pieces, like so. So I have 2 pieces to use. And I'm going to start tucking this in between my baker fern. Now since this is like a slightly nicer green than the baker fern, you want to be able to see it. We don't want it hidden completely underneath. So I'm going to let it stick out a little bit, and this is going to make our arrangement bigger too. So once I have my base pretty well attended, and you know, a lot of times we'll go back and add more greens if we need to at the end, but once I'm fairly confident that I'm going to be able to hold up my roses, I can start adding my roses. Now, to clean them, and this goes for any rose, if you buy them at the grocery store or here, or they're bunched, short, long, whatever, you want to clean the stem very well, but you don't want to damage the stem. So a lot of times here, just because we're trying to move quickly, we use rose strippers like this. You may have seen them. And we start at the point that we want to clean the thorns off of the stem and just pull it down like this. Now the only downside of doing that is that it can kind of bruise up the stem a little bit, and if the stem is slightly bruised, it might give off more particles into the water, which leads to the dirty water. So if you don't have rose strippers, or if you want to keep your stems a little cleaner, just use your clippers or kitchen scissors or whatever. Trim off your thorns. Okay, so you have a nice clean stem. And then cut it at an angle. And you're going to insert it starting around the outside of the vase. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to put it in at an angle. So I'm going to turn it this way so you can see. As it's going in, it went straight down to here. And the reason that I'm doing this is this is going to be my first layer of roses. It's going to be at the bottom level. So the crisscrossing that happens here, again, at this neck of the vase, is going to help hold up my tall roses at the top. So I'll do the same thing again, like spokes on a wheel. You want to measure it somewhat to the vase, but you don't want to take too much off because part of the look of the roses is that they're long stems, so you don't want to cut them too short. And I like to leave a little bit of the foliage on if it's pretty because it helps fill in this upper area as well. If it's damaged or it's not pretty, just take it off. And come in here, turn so you can see it. So from above, I'm just gonna keep going around like this, like spokes on a wheel. Foundation layer going on. So next up, we're going to start up with our next one. So we leave these a little bit longer than the last ones. So I'm going to trim that at an angle. Clean out all of these nubs, thorns, and this one I'm going to go in and twist it a little bit to make sure it goes where you want it, and it holds it. Petals, come in here. Again, this time I'm not going to put it in like a spoke. I'm putting it in more up top. And my greens and my grid, we're going to hold it together for me. Measure. You want your stems to kind of get down to the fat part or below, because as they drink the water, it'll probably go down to about here before you notice that you have to fill it back up again. So you want to make sure your stems are at least in that bottom portion. Okay, so this one. Requires a little bit of pre-planning, but if it doesn't go right in the middle, it's okay. But this one's going to fill in that middle space. Okay. And then once you have all of your guys in where you want it, turn it, adjustments as I go. This looks pretty good. Then you want to go back and add any greens if you think you need it. Looking around the bottom, if it seems like uneven, add a little bit of greenery. And then do your finishing green. So in this case, I'm using that Israeli ruscus that I mentioned earlier. I'm using it as a full stem rather than breaking it up. So it comes all the way up and fills in the space around the stems of the roses. I'm just going to take a couple of green leaves off the bottom, just so that none of them get stuffed all the way down into the vase. And put that in right there. So it just kind of hovers in between and fills in this kind of like space right here. And we usually use between 8 and 10. Again, it depends on how large they are. Sometimes if they're a little bit more spindly, we might opt for the Italian ruscus instead. So this one's nice because it has all this already taken off, so I don't have to trim anything from it. And come right in between the roses. Yeah. Then, once you have your lovely rose arrangement, whether you've made it for yourself or it's been delivered to you, the most important thing is that you keep your water clean. So even right now I'm looking at it and it's a little pieces floating around in there. We always freshen the water before we send them out on delivery. And when you get it, you want to make sure it's filled up with water, again, because the roses and the greens will drink a lot of this water very, very quickly, especially in a warm environment. So make sure it's topped off with water. And then after that, if you notice that it's starting to get a little bit, the water's getting a little murky, definitely change it. I would suggest changing it at least every other day. There we go. And that way you'll get a good return from your roses. Now, in order to change that water, I'll make my last piece of Israeli ruscus in here. Right here. In order to change the water on your roses, I'll make my space a little. What you're gonna do is go around the neck of the vase and gently go up so that the roses and the greens are on the backs of your hands, like this. And then as you pull them up slightly, you're just gonna tighten up on the stems, like so. So a little bit of resistance pulling it out because we put them all in at that angle. So when you take them out to clean them, just take off any nasty little green bits that have fallen in there. Take this, dump your water, refill it. The warmer the water, the more it will open the roses. The colder the water, the tighter the roses will stay. Don't use like hot water because that'll make them super open. And then, you know, if you can, you have the wherewithal, clippers nearby, give them all a trim so they're fresh going into the water. That again is going to allow them to drink more water and extend their life further. And then just slide them right back into the vase with the clean water until they don't really move around anymore, and let them go. They'll require a little bit of adjustment at that point, but they'll generally hold their shape, and that's the easiest way. If you can't do that, it's too difficult for you to take them out of the vase, or you know, you don't have two hands or someone to help you, you can always take the little nozzle from your sink or just put it underneath a faucet and just let new water run into it until all the dirty stuff kind of goes over the top and it's filled with clean water. So that is your other option to clean it up. All right, and there it is. That is our standard dozen of roses with our super long-lasting, beautiful Freedom roses and a pretty assortment of long-lasting greens. From this point, you can customize your arrangement as well to include baby's breath, different filler flowers, different greens if you would like to, or even go up to a double dozen. But this is it. So hopefully you've learned something. If you've been gifted a box of roses also, where you come with a box with all the long stems, this is a good way to put them together. In a vase like this, it's about 11 inches high with this kind of cinched in neck is what you're looking for to make your rose arrangement as nice and big and full as this. So thank you so much for designing along with me today, and I hope you enjoy your Valentine's Day and your roses.